Hi families and students, welcome aboard to our classroom on the boat. Today I thought we would do a cooking lesson, but we're not going to make food. Today we're going to make Play-Doh. So the recipe that I have for us to follow is very simple. Now the great thing about doing any kind of cooking project with children is there are a lot of great things that they can learn from it. First off, they get to learn how to measure. Also, they get to learn how to follow a recipe, which obviously has numbers and words on it. And so they also learn the importance of directions. So, for us to begin on this, you are going to need flour. All-purpose white flour is the best. You are also going to need salt, vegetable oil, and then something called cream of tartar. This acts as a stabilizer to help kind of keep it all together and to keep it from going bad fast. So one of the great things about this project is you can talk to your children about how to use measuring cups and measuring spoons. For flour, you're going to need 2 cups of flour. And you can let your children do the measuring. It's okay. It sometimes gets a little messy, but the experience is worth it. So this is called a dry measure. And my flour is a dry product, so we're going to go ahead and we'll reach in and scoop it. And one of the things I tell my kids is this is not an exact cup. I usually level it off. So you can definitely show your child how to level off dry ingredients. And we're going to go ahead and put it into a pan. You're going to need 2 cups of flour to make this Play-Doh. Okay, so I've got a nice big full cup here, but we need to level it off so that it is exactly a cup and not too much. All right, so there's my 2 cups of flour. The next ingredient I need is salt. I need 1 cup of salt. Now salt's a little more complicated to level off. So what I'll do is I will fill it up and then I'll turn over to my sink to make sure that it's exactly a cup and not too much. And actually if I jiggle it, that works too, but I'm going to go ahead and go over to my sink right behind me here and I'm going to level it off so it's exactly 1 cup of salt. The great thing about this Play-Doh recipe is that it's safe for children to use. We don't have to worry about them getting sick. It's really salty. It's not going to taste great, but if your child decides to take a taste of it, they're going to be okay. The next ingredient we're going to need is 1 tablespoon of the cream of tartar. And this is a great time to be able to talk to your children about the different spoons that make up a set of measuring spoons. So we have the tablespoon, and I have a teaspoon and a half and a quarter. So you can talk to them about how these smaller units can go into to make up the bigger unit, like the tablespoon. So I'm going to do 1 cup of this. Oh, and I have not opened this container. So this one gets a little tricky to measure out because my spoon doesn't fit into it. So one thing that you can do if you're having your child measure something like this is you could pour it into a bowl where they could do the scooping of the cream of tartar. I don't have any little helpers today, so I'm going to kind of just pour it in. And what I usually do is I will level off with my finger. So I'm going to go back over to my sink so I don't put too much into my Play-Doh recipe here. And so we'll put that tablespoon of cream of tartar in. Then the next thing I need is 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 2 tablespoons. And see, and this is a great time also for children to practice counting and keeping track of things. So there's 1 tablespoon, and now I need 1 more. 2. All right. Then the last ingredient I need for this is water. I'm going to need 2 cups of warm water. I always like to also make sure I put the lids on all my containers, especially if I'm working with children, because otherwise I know little fingers like to get into things, to be able to feel how like the flour feels versus the salt. And that is something that you can do too when you are cooking with your children. You can give them little samples of these various items so that they can feel it. You know, flour has a very soft texture. Salt is a little more coarse, and so they can see the difference. They can even experiment by tasting. It's okay. So I'm going to go to my sink that's right behind me here, and I'm going to get 2 cups of warm water. Now, another thing to be able to explain to children is, you notice that I had this cup here that I was measuring dry ingredients, but I'm using this one to do my wet ingredient, my water. This is called a liquid measure, and there's actually a little bit of a difference between dry measure and liquid measure. So, little fun fact for you to learn about today. So, let me get that water. And the reason we like to use warm water is it kind of helps to speed up the process, because this recipe you will actually cook. Now there are recipes out there that don't require any cooking, but I really like to use this particular recipe because the Play-Doh lasts for a long time. So your child will be able to get a lot of enjoyment out of it. It doesn't get too hard. It doesn't break up and flake and get all over the place like some Play-Dohs do, especially the uncooked recipes. So this is one I've been really successful with. Let me get that other cup. Now the fun thing about liquid measures is they have numbers down along the side, and you can show your child that we have to measure to this top line here to make 1 cup, but there are also other lines that represent different amounts. So it's a fun thing that you can talk to your child about, like that 2 halves might make 1 cup. Okay, I have all my ingredients in my pan, and at this point it's just a wet mess. This would be a great time before you start up your oven, or your stovetop, I should say, not the oven, but the stovetop. You can let your child stir these ingredients. If you have more than 1 child working on this with you, you can practice taking turns. We do this often in class, where we'll count how many stirs a child is going to get. So if you've got, 2 or 3 children helping you on this project, you can give them each 10 stirs. We want to go ahead and get it mixed up before we start cooking it. So, as you can see right now, it really doesn't look like Play-Doh. It looks like a wet mess. All right. Now, excuse me here for a minute. Now, at this point, this is where I would prefer adults take over. Anytime you're working with a stovetop and young children, I usually prefer to do this part of the process. Okay, I'm just making sure it's on. So with this particular recipe, you are going to want to stir at a fairly good pace. I usually put my stovetop on medium. If I'm not wanting to be very patient about it, sometimes even medium-high. You're going to find out that it's going to start getting hard to stir the Play-Doh. First, it'll kind of start looking lumpy, and then it'll seem like it's sticking to the bottom, and that's okay. I just kind of scrape my spoon along. It will start to get more and more lumpy, and it will stick to the spoon. See how it's sticking to the spoon? That's okay. Just keep stirring. Now, sometimes people like to add color to their Play-Doh, and you can use food color to do that. You can also add different scents. I know some people who like to add essential oils into their Play-Doh to make it smell really good. My favorite usually is peppermint. In the fall, when the children when we've been doing projects with cooking cookies or making gingerbread, I will often add ingredients like cinnamon or nutmeg to give it a fall. And as you can see, I'm really starting to work hard now. So I'm going to show you really quick. This is what it's starting to look like. It's starting to gather up in the bottom of the pan, and it's getting very difficult, but it's still a little wet, so I have to keep stirring until it's not wet looking anymore. There's no creamy look to it. It gets a very dry look, and it just balls up, and as you can see, I'm really working hard. Okay. Well, it's just about done. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my oven or my stove. I don't know why I keep calling it an oven. So, as you can see, it has completely balled up into the middle of my pan. Now at this point, I'm going to be taking it out of this pan, and I'm going to add some color and, maybe something to make it smell good. So let me grab my color. And let me grab a surface to be able to work on. Hold on just a minute. So, this isn't too hot right here. Actually, I think I'm going to move us over to my other counter here. So we're going to go on just a little bit of a journey, and hopefully you'll be able to see. Actually, lower you down just a little bit so you can see more of the surface here. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the Play-Doh over onto a surface where I can knead it. Now, the Play-Doh is really warm, but this is something that the children could help with. So as you can see, it's warm and it's just all nice and solid, but I do want to add some color. So what I'm going to do, I've got some food color here to be able to add to it. And I think, well, you can do whatever colors you want. I think I'm going to make mine maybe a kind of a greenish yellow. And you, depending on how bright you want the color, will you determine that by however many drops you add onto it. I also want it to smell good, so I am going to use a little essential oil. I want it to smell a little bit like oranges, so I'm just going to sprinkle a little of that on it. And then you do something called kneading, and you can show your child how to do this. Like I said, right now this is really nice and warm. So I'm just kind of folding the color in. And like I said, this is hot Play-Doh. So you might want to wait a little bit before you have your children touch it. But for kneading, what you do is you push your hand in, you fold it, and then you turn. And then you push your hand in, fold, and then turn. So there's actually a rhythm to it. And this is also the same process that you use to make bread. And so I would keep doing that until I get the color all mixed in. You can also add the color at the time that you are stirring all your ingredients, but I wasn't sure at the time whether I had wanted it or not, so I'm a little late on it. But it would also be fun. This is a great time too if you want to have your children see what happens when you mix two colors. Like for instance, right now I have some yellow on here. I could add blue, and then we would discover that when you mix blue and yellow, it makes green. But it's a great way for children to see that happen right before their eyes. So you could also have them do some color mixing. And as you notice, this Play-Doh just works really great, and it will last a long time. When it has cooled off, you will want to store it into a container with either a lid, or you can put it in a Ziploc bag, and it will keep for at least one or two months, depending on how often your child plays with the Play-Doh. So thank you for coming to my galley on the boat, and I hope you have a great day.